We are delighted to have Parakala Prabhakar once more with the Malabar Journal.
Sethurathan, thank you very much for having me back on Malabar Journal. First time I came and I spoke to you, it was very enjoyable. I liked it a lot. The standard of the conversation was very high. I still recall with very much fondness.
Dr. Prabhakar, a well-known economist and political commentator, was one of the first persons to come out and say that the BJP led by Prime Minister Narendra Modi is unlikely to have a clear majority during the parliament elections. He said this in an interview with the Malabar Journal way back in January, when the entire country was having a kind of a euphoria over BJP coming back, especially in the background of the election wins made by the BJP in the three North Indian states, Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh and Chhattisgarh. That was the background, of our first conversation with Dr. Prabhakar when he was in Cochin for a function. What was the kind of confidence or what is the kind of impression by which you said that this regime is not going to come back? What was the kind of inspiration for telling like that?
Sethurathan, I told you that time, that was my finding after going around the country quite a lot. And then that was my initial finding. And as I went more and more, during the last 10 months, I have traveled the entire length and breadth of the country, except Kashmir and northeastern states. I've touched almost every state, and some states more than once, 2 or 3 times even. And whenever I went, I spoke about my book and the gatherings. I also made it a point to go and meet young people in the campuses. Not only that, in the 2 or 3 days that I stayed at a place in different states, I also made it a point to go out and meet a cross-section of the people, both rural, urban, men, women, different income groups, different castes, different professions, different educational groups or education levels, people with different education levels, small traders and big industrialists, employees, young people, and all sorts of people. So I've been trying to see what was the mood and what kind of issues are exercising their minds before the elections would to be announced. So I found during my travels and my conversations with these people that there is a very clear sign of a substantial shift in the ground. So that was the initial finding, and my initial finding got progressively strengthened. And of course, I was asking these questions and having these conversations with an open mind because, I have no access to grind. I was not trying to, root for a political party or work against a political party or a leader. I was not looking at that. That is the reason why I could say as early as January to you and to some other friends of mine in the media and elsewhere, that there is a very strong likelihood of the present government not returning with full strength. And I went on to forecast the numbers state-wise. To a large extent, my forecasts and my prognosis is borne out.
I think except in Odisha and Bihar, you are almost on dot.
Yes. I also went wrong in Delhi.
Yeah, Delhi also.
These are the 3 places where the calculations went wrong. But of course, that needs to be, a lot of data needs to be crunched and why it went wrong and what were the margins and all that kind of a thing. But except that, but you see, the numbers that I got wrong in these places were amply compensated, say, from places like Maharashtra. Maharashtra, I expected, the actual result is more than what I expected.
Yeah, in Uttar Pradesh also to a certain extent.
Uttar Pradesh, I was expecting about 50, but it came much less than 50.
Yeah. Now, coming back, the elections are over and the BJP has failed to have a majority of its own. But at the same time, NDA as a bloc is on the verge of forming the next government. So already the narratives have started appearing, despite all these efforts by the India front, they were not, they were unable to have as much seats as the BJP single-handedly won. So there is no question of saying that Narendra Modi or the NDA has lost the elections. Suddenly, all the talk about the 400 plus and everything is gone. Now everybody is talking about NDA as an alliance, and all these things. They are all talking about the virtues of the alliance, things like that. And also, there is also a lot of talks about, I think that we will come back and on our second, some of the India alliance parties shifting their loyalty to the NDA and things like that. So, what is your initial impression on this thing? What exactly is going to be the difficulties in the ministry making as well as the sustainability of the ministry?
Sethurathan, let me take up one by one. Now, let us look at the narrative of, in spite of all the efforts of the India alliance, BJP and NDA has come back to power. Therefore, the image of Sri Narendra Modi had not dimmed. This is the narrative that is being propagated now. Let me take you back to, how it all started. In 2014, it started as an NDA. Very quickly, it became BJP government in the narrative, although it remained technically an NDA government. And then very soon after that, it became Modi government. And 2019, it was Modi government again. Then in this election, just recall, there is no talk about NDA. There is not even any talk about BJP. It is Modi Sarkar.
It was Modi guarantee.
It is not even the manifesto is not NDA manifesto. It is not even BJP manifesto. It is called Modi guarantee. And in a document of about 72 or 73 pages, there are more than 50 photographs of Mr. Narendra Modi. And wherever the entire election pitch is Modi, Modi, Modi. And then the entire pitch of Mr. Modi is Muslim, Hindu, Machli, Mutton, and Mangalsutra, Mujra, and that kind of a narrative. So, and this is on the one side. And you know very well that the BJP, because of its electoral bonds and so many other things, is a very resourceful party, very rich party. Not only that it is a rich party, but it has completely, handicapped all the other political parties in the country. It has arrested 2 chief ministers. It has frozen the bank accounts of the main opposition party. And it has rendered the election commission into some kind of a government department rather than an independent body, because the very appointment of election commissioners in that committee, the role of the Chief Justice of India was completely eliminated. So it has become like the appointment of a secretary to government. In addition to that, the mainstream media, the so-called mainstream media, both print as well as electronic and digital media, they have become an organ, an extension of the INB ministry, like the DAVP, Directorate of Audio and Visual Publicity, kind of a thing. So with this kind of a thing, if BJP could not cross 240 and leave alone 370, and for the entire alliance for 𝗳𝗵𝗃, leave alone that, the BJP itself has fallen much, much short of the required 272. And with all the, the present NDA is the largest NDA, actually. If you look at the history of NDA, this is the first ever time that NDA has so many partners. With so many partners, advantages. Still, and even with TDP and JDU, still they're short of, with the other smaller partners in the NDA, they're able to just cross the 272 and go up to 290 or somewhere, 290 or 293. So that is the state of affairs. What does it mean? It means that the Modi magic has disappeared. Actually, it is, leave alone the spin and all that. It is the BJP, the NDA, the BJP spin masters who will have to explain why, with all these strengths, they struggled to even cross 240. This is one. And look at the Prime Minister Narendra Modi's performance itself in Varanasi. This is, even from the standards of his own party. I'm not talking about Jawaharlal Nehru, I'm not talking about other prime ministers. I'm talking about the BJP MPs, their margin of victory. If you see, it is not one of the top. It is somewhere more than 150th. If you see the entire list of BJP members of parliament and the margins by which they had won. In fact, he just escaped defeat by the skin of his teeth. So that is the kind of scenario that is in front of us. This election has thrown up a very, very strong lesson. It has proved that the electorate has dealt a very strong slap on the face of the BJP, and especially in the face of the Prime Minister.
After this, how do you view the government formation? Whether we all know that the Narendra Modi as a person and as a political leader is always a man of his own. If you take his track record as the Chief Minister of Gujarat and as the Prime Minister of the country, he was always on top of the situation, in the sense that he always enjoyed a majority of his party and he never tolerated any other dissenting voice within the government or within the party. So how do you, such a person is going to run a coalition government? That too when you have two strong regional leaders such as Chandrababu Naidu and Nitish Kumar.
See, the NDA, especially if you look at TDP and JDU, they are not ideological allies of BJP. They are very transactional allies. They are contextual allies. They are real political allies. Because they are there because it's an advantage to them. They felt that it is an advantage to be with BJP and NDA. It's not because they subscribe to the ideology of BJP or to the policies that Narendra Modi pursued in terms of Hindu-Muslim and Hindutva and Ram Temple and all those things. It's not that. So therefore, these two parties or other parties are not really in any kind of any kind of an obligation to support the cause of the BJP. This is number one. Number two, if you look at the persona of Mr. Narendra Modi, he is not a deal maker. He is not somebody who would look for and forge consensus. He is not somebody who would make people sit down, explain to them things and, gain their confidence and arrive at some kind of a consensus, make them agree to what he says and or probably agree to what they say and look for a middle ground, strike a bargain. That kind of a strength Mr. Narendra Modi does not have. His team also does not have. And so far, if you look at the evidence, you mentioned his Gujarat days and Delhi days also. All through over 20 odd years, the person has not faced a situation where he had to compromise and build a consensus. In fact, it has always been my way or highway kind of a way that he had. That is one. The second thing is that, starting from Gujarat till recently in Delhi, for all technical purposes, it could be NDA government or BJP government, both there in Gujarat as well as here. But for all practical purposes, it was Modi government. It was his government. He did not have to explain anything to anybody, not even to the RSS bosses. He did whatever he wanted. He did not have to have an approval or an endorsement or even to convince his colleagues, even senior colleagues like Rajnath Singh or Gadkari or even before that Mr. Arun Jaitley or Mr. Sushma Swaraj, who were all very serious compared to Mr. Modi in Delhi politics. Even to them, he did not have to, take them along. They just had to fall in line. That was the kind of thing he got used to. That is how he ran the government, both in Ahmedabad as well as in Gandhinagar as well as in Delhi. Now, today, expecting Mr. Narendra Modi to day in and day out, morning, evening, night, deal with Nitish Kumar and Chandrababu Naidu, take their consent, take their permission, seek their guidance, seek their approval, accommodate their interests, accommodate their requests or demands. I think the person is not cut out to be that. I don't think he'll be able to run a coalition government successfully. Is my feeling. It's not that I know what is his mind, and I've not studied his psychology. It's not that I've studied it, but then whatever is available in the public domain, both his time in Gandhinagar as well as in Delhi, if you look at it, if you go by that, there is no evidence to suggest that overnight Mr. Narendra Modi can suddenly become a consensus builder, a bargainer, a compromise seeker, who can assemble people, make them sit and understand and approve his plan. I don't think he'll be able to transform himself like that suddenly. So therefore, my prognosis is that it will be very difficult for Mr. Narendra Modi to run a coalition, even probably to even assemble a coalition. You see, even if the President of India calls him and asks him to form the government, swears him in, and then gives time to prove his majority in the Lok Sabha, I have my own doubts that he might do that. He might swear himself in. He might swear in, but then I don't think he'll be able to cobble together a coalition satisfying the demands of all sections of the coalition partners.
So you mean to say that Modi 3.0 is likely to be a short-lived experiment?
I think so. I think even before the President of India calls him, probably he might find it very difficult to carry on and say that and another thing is NDA or BJP, especially BJP as a party. Party will of course reassert itself now since Mr. Modi is substantially weakened. They would not like to sacrifice an opportunity to be a senior partner in an NDA government if Mr. Narendra Modi is the obstruction to it, or is an obstacle to it. I think a day will come sooner than later, very soon actually, that Mr. Modi may be asked to very gracefully step down, and another leader who can build a consensus can be asked to form the government. I won't be surprised at that.
So do you mean to say that, as we all know, that every political party will be having different power blocks? So Modi is one of the power block within the BJP. So the other power blocks are likely to assert their viewpoint in a more forceful manner in the coming days.
I think so, Sethanathan, because you see, I would also like to draw your attention to this. Mr. Modi, throughout his 20 odd years as a leader, both there in Gujarat as well as here, is not known for earning friends by giving them favors or doing deals with them to helping them out and things like that. So therefore, in his own difficult days, I don't think he has anybody who would like to stand by him and say, oh God, he helped me before, so let me help him now, kind of a thing. So he has not earned any friends, one. And secondly, if it comes to, being in power or putting the party in power or not at all being in power, I think the party's wisdom will prevail that, okay, let's, I mean, he had his own innings of 10 years. Let him gracefully step aside. We can go forward with somebody else. That's also possible.
Another thing about this election is that, from Gujarat to Delhi, Narendra Modi's political campaign was always based on an aggressive brand of Hindutva and hyper-nationalism. So in this election, do you think that these two uh, brands with which Modi dominated the political discourse is not gaining the same kind of traction which it used to gain earlier?
That's a very significant point that you've raised, Sethunath. But let me remind you of 2014 and 2019 pitch. 2014, the pitch was not Hindutva for Mr. Narendra Modi. That time it was, remember that time the India against corruption agitation was at its peak. So it was anti-corruption, it was creation of 2 crore jobs per annum, it was a doubling of income of farmers, it was bringing back black money from abroad, putting 15 lakhs to 20 lakhs of rupees in every honest taxpayer's account. Those were the pitches. In fact, that time candidate Narendra Modi went to the extent of saying that in the country, the fight was not between Hindus and Muslims, but it was a fight of Hindus and Muslims on the one hand against unemployment and poverty on the other side. So that was the pitch. And that pitch gave him and the Bharatiya Janata Party a huge electoral dividend, in the sense from about 25% when it was at its peak in 2008. In 2014, that went up to about 31%. So that was the accrual. And it was not based on Hindutva and divisive agenda, Hindu-Musliman kind of a thing. And 2019, you are well aware that, it was Balakot and, that kind of hyper-nationalism and Pakistan. That was the one which brought again power to BJP. But this time, somehow, they forgot what was the pitch that brought them to power and went on an overdrive of Hindutva. Hindu Musliman, Ram Temple, 370, Common Civil Code, National Register of Citizenship, and all sorts of divisive agenda. And Prime Minister's rhetoric also, it used to be very oblique references earlier, and lesser party functionaries used to directly attack Muslims and minorities. But this time, Prime Minister himself, it was not just oblique references or dog whistles, but directly head-on he went. Calling Muslims as Ghuspaiti, infiltrators, calling Muslims as, jo ज़्यादा बच्चे पैदा करते हैं, people who produce a lot of children, that kind of a thing. So, and also said, went on saying that, if opposition comes to power, they will put a Babri lock on Ram Janmabhoomi. That kind of a very overtly, openly communal pitch that he has taken. And that is the reason why, if you see, leave it on other places, but in UP, including Faizabad, Ayodhya, the constituency, they've lost. And UP, they've lost substantially, much more than what even you and I have expected way back in January. That is therefore, the Hindutva pitch has not worked for them. In fact, if you were to ask me what is the main takeaway of this election, to me, the main takeaway of this election is that the people of India have given a very strong message. Look, we do not want our political elite and political leadership and political parties to champion divisive agenda. It is a course correction. You come back, you talk about our rozgari, our employment, our price rise, our day-to-day, our livelihoods, about our farmers. This is the substantial message that has gone today after the polling is over and after the results have come.
So in other words, the politics is coming back to some real and basic issues faced in this country, faced by the people of this country.
I think so. Sethurathan. I think, Indian electorate and Indian public in general, they probably preponderantly like some kind of a centrist approach rather than far left or far right. Under Vajpayee, when BJP became, just slightly left of, right of center, maybe center, more towards center, then it was blessed once or twice. And when Narendra Modi talked about the livelihood issues and employment and price rise, remember in 2014, he went on saying in the public meetings that, before you go out and vote, just do a namaskaram to your gas cylinder and go. So he was hinting at price rise, livelihood issues, corruption, employment. These were the issues he was addressing then. So when he himself deviated and suddenly started to imagine that his past mandates were on the communal plank, it was a misunderstanding, but yet he misunderstood and went ahead. The party went ahead. Then, I think there was a tight slap on the face. So it is, I think this is a course correction.
And coming back to the India alliance formation, see, you have mentioned in an earlier interview I have seen that India alliance is an incidental beneficiary of the people's anger against the ruling regime. So how do you explain that?
Look at the kind of fight that the opposition alliance could put up. It's not a very strong fight because, as I said earlier, their resources were they were handicapped. Their resources were frozen. Their bank accounts were frozen. Their two chief ministers were placed under arrest, and a lot. ED, IT, CBI, a lot of state institutions were used. Because of that, the fight that the opposition could put up was not to the fullest extent. But it was the civil society, it was the people who put up the fight. Had the fight on behalf of the political parties, opposition political parties, been a bit stronger than what it was, the result would have been drastically different. I think BJP would have been reduced to below 200 and NDA would not have crossed 250, 260. And the opposition alliance could have, comfortably crossed 272 or much more than 272, and they could have comfortably formed the government. That is my guess. Of course, it's just a guess, anybody's guess. But the point is this: the point is that the opposition was not in a position structurally also, and in contextually, because of the atmosphere. Media is controlled and government is everywhere. The ruling party has enormous amount of resources. They had troll armies. The entire narrative was controlled by them. Look at that, the narrative of 𝗧𝗵𝗵, 400, more than 400. That was the narrative. The narrative was not whether BJP was winning or not. In fact, as you said, we were some of the first ones to say that the question should be whether BJP would win or not, and BJP is not coming back with the kind of number on its own. But that was not the narrative then. So that was the kind of power that they've exerted, and therefore, whatever today you see at the superstructure level of the political parties, the opposition, etc., is a result of whatever has happened in the civil society. I'll give you one more example. A lot of mockery, a lot of critique, a lot of pointing out the omissions and commissions of the government is done not so much by the political parties, but by the civil society. People who are in the social media, YouTubers, people who wrote, and not again in the mainstream media and the print media, but different websites, different news aggregators. This is the one which has really set up a counter narrative and taken on the ruling party's narrative.
That is one point which, in fact, I wanted to come to. One is the role of civil society and the role of the, what do you call as an alternative media, not the mainstream media, not the mainstream media. So how do you view these developments, the role of civil society and the alternative media?
Let us treat these two together as one entity, or two aspects of one entity. It is the civil society which promoted, which consumed the alternative media, the digital media, the independent media, and the civil society and the alternative media, the digital media, responded to the what is happening in the civil society. When the mainstream media was not talking about the restless agitation, it was not talking about Manipur situation, it was not talking about the farmers agitation, it was not talking about the joblessness, it was not talking about rural distress, it was not talking about the electoral bonds. It is the alternative media, and that alternative media was being consumed by the civil society, and civil society is being responded to, catered to by this. Otherwise, the alternative media could not have survived, isn't it? Because it has no support at all. It's just survived financially also by the support of the civil society, either by contributions or by whatever is earned by the news aggregators paid to some of these news outlets. So, which means that the credibility of the mainstream media has completely fallen so low that whatever the government could say or try to create a narrative, it remained in a small echo chamber. It has not gone into the civil society. Therefore, the civil society and the alternative media, the digital media, the independent media, played a very, very important role in shaping the mind of the people and foregrounding the issues. The real livelihood issues were foregrounded by the independent media. The mainstream media was looking at, a pre-wedding bash of Ambani's family, and maybe some celebrities outing, or their cases. That was the kind of thing that was being paraded on the mainstream media. But alternative media is the one which foregrounded the real livelihood issues of the people.
Now we are almost coming to the concluding part of this conversation, and I would like to ask you, what is the kind of, forward movement for the not only the opposition political parties in this country, and what is the kind of political developments which you foresee in the coming days ahead? Especially, you are in your earlier conversation, you have said that in a setback in election alone will not be able to, will not end the fight against the communal forces. Especially in that background, I am asking this question.
Oh, yes, that's very important. You see, I've always held this view that the poison of communalism has gone so deep into the civil society. So many people are unconsciously communal these days, maybe soft bigotry, etc., etc. It takes at least a couple of decades for this poison to be extricated from the mind of the society. So for that, political parties, in my mind, are not really equipped, because they have to make compromises, they have to get votes, and even 2 votes, 10 votes of one village, one section of the population also is very important for winning an election. So they strike all sorts of deals, and they have to make all sorts of compromises. Therefore, it is the civil society which will have to work against this communal virus, and it takes a lot of time. But one thing is that, this cutting down to size of BJP, NDA, especially under the leadership of Sri Narendra Modi, it will definitely give some kind of a reprieve, some kind of a relief to carry on this kind of a work. But then people should not, become complacent, say, okay, the threat is gone, it is moderated now, they're under control. That should not be the case. I think the civil society should be very, very alert, because, Sethanathan, the communal virus, it can just lie low, it can wait, it doesn't die, You can wait for 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 100 years also it can wait. And once the societal immunity comes down, it can suddenly rear its head and come back in a very ugly form. And if these 5 years are until the next election, whenever those elections take place, uh, if these 5 years are not fully properly utilized by the civil society to extricate this poison from the society's minds, in 2029 or whenever the elections are held, this virus can again come back with full force.
So you mean to say that we needed to be doubly cautious?
Yes. And all the work, especially in the fields of scientific temper, education, political education, because you see, including the Prime Minister of the country says that until Attenborough's movie, Gandhi was not known. That is the kind of level of education and level of social consciousness and political consciousness. The Prime Minister can say that, you can imagine what youngsters of India today can say. People's knowledge or consciousness of our own history, what is happening in the world, has become so poor and so cut off. Because a friend of mine the other day was telling me, and I had to believe it because he had no reason to lie, that he was in conversation with his grandson, and in the conversation he mentioned about United Nations, and the boy, who was an engineering graduate, he asked him, "What is United Nations?" So which means the a substantial section of our society is unaware of what happened earlier and what's happening in the world, what are the institutions that govern the world, except technology and tools and cloud and AI and other things. An impression has come about that all these other things are not very necessary. So which means that all these minds are very fertile grounds for these WhatsApp university forwards and brainwashing and things like that. There's no resistance. So these things will have to be built up. Scientific temper has to be built up. A civic consciousness has to be built up. People should be aware of our history. What was the spirit of our freedom movement? What are the values that inform our constitution? That our country is a diverse country. It has every religion and it belongs to everybody. Because you see, I've heard people ask me very naively, people who are not communal, who are not bigots, but people ask me, "Sir, Christians have their own countries and Muslims have their own countries. Why can't Hindus have their own country?" That is the kind of it doesn't cross their minds that India is not the country only for Hindus, but for everybody. So these consciousness has to be built and brought back. This is a huge task before the civil society.
Coming to the last question is basically the two important regional leaders, Chandrababu Naidu and Nitish Kumar. See, they are going to make a hard bargain. Everybody knows that, but they have some specific issues like special status for Andhra and Bihar. These are all some of the pending demands for quite long. How that is going to play out in the coming days, and what is the kind of impact it is going to make in the overall federal system in this country?
You see, to start with, for instance, although the JDU Nitish Kumar has been with NDA, not just now, but for some time now, much before the elections, they have not raised any demands, but now they're raising demands. They would like to have demands. In fact, today, some time ago, the spokesperson of JDU had raised this issue that Agniveer scheme has to be reviewed.
Okay.
They did not say it all these days. So which means slowly the demands are coming. Now, when coming to Andhra Pradesh, special category status is one very important thing, because remember, when Mr. Naidu walked out of NDA in 2018, it was mainly because the center refused to give special category status to Andhra Pradesh. And then Bihar also, the same kind of a demand would come. It has been there for a long time. And then coming to Andhra Pradesh, we have Polavaram, another Polavaram, it has to be expedited, funds have to be released, the works have to be fast-tracked. And then the state also has this demand that, we need to build a new capital, we need substantial amount of funds, and we need a steel plant, Kadapa, and so many other things. So all these the so-called wish list, both from Andhra Pradesh as well as from Bihar, would come very prominently. And if these two states are submitting wish lists, why will other states keep quiet? They'll also assert their rights, and they will also start making demands, and other parties also making demands. This is in addition to the political demands, in the sense both JDU and Telugu Desam will demand key portfolios in the central cabinet. And it is rumored now, it's on the social media, that the TDP is demanding speaker's position. You also mentioned that. So these things, and how far the BJP leadership is mentally prepared to concede these demands. If they concede the demands, these demands are going to be insatiable. If you fulfill 10 demands, the 11th demand will come tomorrow. If you fulfill 11th demand, 12th demand will come day after tomorrow. Will they go on yielding to these demands? Or if they don't, what if both the important allies are unhappy and they withdraw the support? Are they prepared to sacrifice their government? So this is a huge, tricky situation for them.
So thank you very much, sir, for talking to us in an elaborate manner. And I'm sure that we will be having more opportunities to have interactions with you. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much, Sethunath. Thank you very much.